Making It, Latino Students' Pathways to College is a co-production of Regional Educational Laboratory Midwest and Detroit Public Television, with funding provided by REL Midwest through funds provided by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences.
Everyone has the same capabilities of, getting there and making it there and going somewhere in life.
Higher ed is evolving to the point where they're encompassing, a lot of programming to support students of different walks of life.
We're understanding now as a nation and as a globe really that we need to listen to the voices of all, and in doing so then we will empower all.
Our Latino youth need to be able to share their experiences, talk about their challenges, and have the teachers and educators and leaders in the community listen to those and respond.
I was born in Mexico. We moved from Mexico when I was going into 4th grade, and I moved to Detroit. When I came in, my biggest concern and my biggest trouble was the English, the new language, the new culture, new weather. That was the biggest shock that I experienced. But I always knew I wanted to go to college. I always knew I wanted to get a bachelor's, master's, and hopefully a PhD in something. So I always had that in mind.
The Latino student population in U.S. schools has risen greatly. It's gone from 8.8 million to 17.9 million, and now makes up about 25% of students, 22 to 25% of students in U.S. schools. When we think about college and career readiness, we want to be able to be empowered coming out of high school, to raise our hand, to answer those questions, to work with other students in groups, to be a part of it, to be engaged, because that will help you to be successful in college, and that's really the goal then, is moving towards your career path.
The Michigan Department of Education is deep in the work of the Top 10 in 10 initiative, and so through that we recognize that there is an opportunity gap that exists with our Latino population right now. We see that across the grade levels, as we look at the academic assessments, that there's somewhere around a 12% gap between how our Latino students are doing and how all students in Michigan are doing. And obviously that's something that we want to address and intentionally work to close.
There's 3 main aspects for students to be college ready. One of them is academic, the other is psychosocial, and the other is financial aid.
Our student population here at Cesar Chavez Academy High School is 95% Latino, first-generation college students, sometimes the first also to graduate high school in their family. My passion comes from also being a first-generation student, Latino student on top of that, being the first in my family to graduate high school, and then also being the first to go to college. So I definitely know the obstacles that are out there, and I know the different factors that are in the household where you might have to stay home to help translate, or you're responsible for taking care of your sisters after school, and meanwhile your parents are still working. I knew that it was necessary for me to go to college in order to be able to help my family in the long run. I tell our students, I'm like, sometimes these huge achievements that they have, our students get accepted to these highly selective colleges, and they go home and they tell their parents, hey, I was just admitted to so-and-so. And they're like, oh, mijo, that's good. And that's it. And it's because I have to tell our students, you know what, sometimes our parents really don't know how to support you. They don't understand the whole college process. You're learning the process yourself and you're teaching them.
Building relationships is a huge part of making both Latino students and their families feel welcome and engaged in the school environment. Things that can make the experience challenging is, not feeling like they have full access because the interpretation or translation isn't available, feeling like they're removed or not a part of the conversation when it comes to the instruction for their children. The more that schools engage them and build them into the structure of how the school operates, the more positive experiences both the kids and the parents will have.
One of the big takeaways for me in sort of visiting Cesar Chavez was the way in which they work to affirm students and their identity. And it's really important for students to be able to see themselves in the educational experience, right? And that's one of the things that I think that Cesar Chavez really centers. And they really do a great job of parental engagement, which I think is also very key.
Cesar Chavez para mí ha sido una experiencia bonita porque mi hijo ha recibido muchas ayudas, lo han más que nada ayudado mucho con su lenguaje, en su preparación académica y gracias a Cesar Chavez y al apoyo de nosotros él ha llegado donde está.
This line on your paper is going to show you the same price through all the situations.
I think Cesar Chavez is really good at helping students realize that they can do things that maybe their family members haven't.
College readiness is all about making sure that students have the skills, and be it technology skills, communication skills, language skills, all of those pieces that you need to have, problem solving.
One of the things that schools can do to help Latino students in the college transition is to ensure that they're taking the hardest classes available. And we do have some research that shows that there are a lot of students, Latino students as well as other students of color, that may not necessarily be encouraged in some cases to go on to the hardest classes. There was in San Diego a survey done of students of color who were very bright but did not go to AP classes. And they surveyed them, and a lot of them felt that they just either didn't know about it or they didn't see themselves in these types of classes. And so that's one of the most important facets of the college admissions process.
I always talk about this vision. You have to have a vision and you have to go and get it. It's important that we encourage the students, regardless of where they are, never to lower the standards. I think students don't rise to low expectations. So I encourage high school teachers, counselors, and college advisors to make sure that the standard is always high.
My teachers encouraged me to take the enrollment classes at college level. We were attending University of Detroit Mercy my senior year to do calculus classes down there because we were done with the high school curriculum. So that the school really provided us that opportunity to go down there and get college experience.
We do have a lot of evidence-based strategies for what works with Latino students to help promote that success academically, beginning really with the social-emotional realm. When I mentioned English language learners, one of the things that we find in the research as far back as the 80s is the notion of the affective filter. Krashen spoke about this, and it's really the idea that when you are in a setting where English is not your first language in this case, you're trying to focus on your lesson, you're trying to listen to your teacher, but you may be experiencing anxiety. We can create an environment where learning is conducive, where we don't just, focus straight bright lights on you to answer a question, but we really provide supports that are going to offer those kinds of things. Latino family values really promote respect, respeto. It is attention to the whole child, and so that's something that we can replicate and learn from Latino families in school by really helping to lower that affective filter, create a situation where students feel comfortable and welcomed.
D1, D2, perfect. So then what do we label this one?
A lot of work that I do comes around relationships and comes around trying to meet students where they are and acknowledge that they're valued and that their thoughts and opinions matter, and trying to not only teach curriculum but teach it in such a way that it meets them where they are and takes their needs into account, but also asks their opinion and asks them to have input in some way.
All right, show me that on a graph, tell me that in words, and then you're good.
There are quite a few pieces of legislation that will help our Latino students. One of the big ones right now is the Section 31A changes. It really takes a look at making sure we have that good, solid core instruction, and one of the things we want to see as a society is that that core instruction is culturally relevant and culturally responsive. The first step to providing culturally relevant instruction in Michigan is to really learn about our kids. The best thing a teacher can do is take the time to understand what's going on in the life of a child and to see where they're coming from, learn about their culture, learn about their family structure, learn about the experiences that they've had.
Okay, so we're a triple whammy. Your favorite shoe company, favorite celebrity, part of profits are coming back to you guys.
So for me, just showing anyone respect for your culture means asking, but asking genuinely, you know? Don't ask just to ask and then walk away uninterested, like genuinely try to learn. And I think also when it comes to culturally relevant pedagogy, you also have to realize things about yourself, where you come from, what your culture is, what your biases may be, and then try in a way to confront those as much as possible.
We want to be able to connect to the cultures of our students. For example, many American students will know and be familiar with the name Thomas Edison, but less students know the name Guillermo González Camarena. And he was a Mexican young man at age 17, gathered parts from a flea market and developed and broadcast the first color television. We want to say, look, there are people who have reached new heights and done exciting things, and they're just like you. We also want that for students who are not Latino to see some great successes. We also want to make sure that we are not only represented, not in that Heroes and Holidays way, it's September, so get out your Hispanic heritage books. We're not talking about that. We're talking about every day, just know your students, make connections where you can, lift them up, make them visible, build and activate those bridges.
District leaders need to look first to themselves and where they're at in the continuum of cultural proficiency, and they need to consider where their staff and their teams are at. The district leader really needs to make sure that there's time set aside for professional learning discussions and time for teachers to dig deeply into their own understanding, and to also have the time to learn about their students and their families as well.
In terms of professional development, I just try to seek out as much as possible to widen my view of the world, so that not only for them do they learn about their own culture and get that, but also realize that, okay, an American culture is not the only one. So intentionally seeking out usually content-driven professional development opportunities to widen the scope of any classroom and get students as many perspectives as possible.
Pues según lo que yo he visto, lo que mi hijo ha estado en César Chavez, pues mucha cultura de nuestro México, y yo estoy contenta por eso, porque a pesar de estar en este país, aquí en la escuela tienen un pedacito de nuestro México.
You feel more supported by the staff, you know, that they are identifying with you, that they are connecting with where you're coming from, your background, your family's background.
So we are very lucky today to have a representative from Duke University here. Duke is located in North Carolina.
It's an interesting balance to help prepare a student to be ready for that college path, because on the one hand you do want to provide scaffolded instruction for students, but you also want to provide gradual release. If you're a first-generation college student, you're going to need help navigating that path. But we want to have that careful balance between empowering the student and then providing them the resources that help them create that bridge and then walk that bridge themselves.
I would say in this community, as students work towards going to college, a lot of support is needed around the logistics. What am I interested in? When do I apply? What should I look for? What is financial aid? Getting those answers to them and helping them work through that process. And those supports are something that our college counselor is really, really good at. And they've set up a system that really, truly seems to be working.
Each month, we'll have a different goal in mind. So in the beginning of the school year, maybe you should retake your SAT. And then we'll expose them to all the college visits in September, October. October, we'll do financial aid. November, we'll do college applications. So once we break down the communication as to what's to come, I think it's a lot more feasible task for our students to actually achieve them and not feel so overwhelmed.
The biggest thing is educating them about financial aid early on, about scholarships, about internships, about things like that, but not just educating the student, but involving the family.
In terms of financial aid, students need to have in place not just tuition, but those sort of ancillary costs. So the books, the housing, if you're going to live on campus, housing that can be central to campus so that you feel part of the community. There's so much more that happens outside of the classroom once you get to college that is really important for students to know about and anticipate. So, for example, how do they manage conflict? How do you respond to microaggressions in the classroom or outside of the classroom? How do you feel part of the community? And I think that those are really important components for students to not just exist in college, but to thrive. There really is no magic bullet in terms of colleges having X number of activities for Latino students or having Y number of spaces. It's really about whether or not they are supporting these students year in and year out. They want to see more faculty that look like them. They want to have spaces where they can feel affirmed. They want to have financial aid so that they can feel comfortable financially in making their decisions to come here. And students also want access to mentorship and spaces on campus.
I think the universities have realized that the first year is a very crucial year for some of our students who don't really have that social transition already built in them, where they might need somebody to be able to refer to or go to, or somebody that looks like them. So Michigan State and a lot of universities in the area have had those mentors and those checks and balances to make sure that the students are being taken care of mentally, academically, and physically.
A migrant is a person who moves from one place to another for the purpose of work and for living. Our migrant community in the United States, it's kind of an isolated community, and people, for some reason or another, think that there's very little relationship to the rest of the country. But for the most part, they're the ones that are help feeding our country on a daily basis.
I mean, I can't even pinpoint the age that I started working, but I have pictures where I'm probably 5, 6 years old and I'm in the fields already working. I wasn't the best student because I moved all of the time. So my grades weren't the best. I ended up dropping out of high school, and then my mother was one that always pushed an education. So when we moved to a different state, she re-enrolled me again, and it just so happened that one of the schools that I attended in Texas took it upon themselves to say, you know what, we can really provide a support system to help you make up the credits that I was lacking to be able to graduate. And when I was working here in Michigan, I think it was just by chance that I was also recruited to be a camp student, and I was one of the students who went through the program and was able to then kind of complete the circle and kind of come back working for the program. The College Assistance Migrant Program, we're a federal grant through the Department of Education and under the Office of Migrant Education. Essentially, it's a first-year program where we recruit a certain number of students to come to our institution, to Michigan State, and then our sole purpose for the grant in terms of the targets that we have is to help students accomplish, their first year of college and then re-enroll and continue on.
I was born in Chicago, Illinois, but my dad decided to move to Michigan and buy a blueberry farm that I've been working on since I was little. And I think the first time I saw a presentation from camp, ELIAS was still the recruiter. And I was like, Mom, I want to go there. And she's like, that's too far. That's too far. And I was like, no, it's not. It'll be fine.
Working with Latino students means working with the family. When we think about familial responsibilities, it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, we have the opportunity to really see how students can connect the home and school, but we have to make some endeavors toward that as educators so that it becomes a natural extension of the school to work with the families. There's a lot of myths out there that Latino families don't care about kids' education, or because of socioeconomic reasons aren't as involved or as engaged. But remember, what's the typical lens? Are we asking families to reach in, or are we reaching out?
The problem is that the parents don't know what it is that you're talking about. I'll give you an example of parents that came last year with their daughter and just saying, I need to come here because I heard your orientation. I still don't understand it. She says, who's going to pay for the electricity where my daughter's going to stay? Where is she going to eat? And so we took her to the cafeteria and we said, well, no, that's the cost of electricity and water is all integrated into the bill. Here's how the bills are going to be working. This is what your financial aid's available for your daughter. And then her and her husband chatted a bit, and she's saying, can I stay also here? I said, no, this is for your daughter, it's not for you.
My dad is from Reynosa, and then my mom is from Tampico. And I have 2 older siblings, and they were both born in Mexico. And then I was privileged enough to be born here, so I'm a US citizen, and then I have 2 little brothers. My parents didn't go to college, but they really want us to get an education. I remember telling my mom, hey, maybe what if I don't do college? She was like, no, you're gonna do it. Because she didn't have the opportunities that we have, so she wants us to take advantage of that.
I think that the Migrant Student Services Office is very integral to the success of these students. One of the biggest challenges for students, especially I went to a predominantly Latino high school and then transitioned into a predominantly white college, is the transition can sometimes be very shocking because some of the references that you readily had no longer apply.
The dynamics with some of our students, they come from some high schools where they're 80–90% of Mexican background. They come to Michigan State and they're less than 3%. So it's how do I acclimate in an environment that's totally foreign to me? And that's really where operations like ours help people transition. When a student walks into our area, it makes them feel like, wow, it's just like I'm back home. We constantly are building a community.
They're doing the academic support, the financial aid, and the social emotional support that they need, which really would enable them to feel like they're part of the community, but also be academically successful in the classroom.
Camp provides a lot of peer support, like their office doors are always open and they'll listen to you and then they'll tell you what you can do to make it better.
They have this group and they meet here like on Wednesdays and it's called Growing Together. And we do different activities, so like for like mental health, things like that. They have the quiet room. They'll help you and provide you with a tutor. So they really listen to your needs and try to help you succeed academically.
Financially, like ELIAS is the one that like helps us get loans and learn more like about them. They gave us like a small stipend. So they're like, oh, for like books or whatever you need for classes.
If you need health insurance or food, or money to go to like, even to go to conferences, they help you with that. You just have to like submit a proposal. And so I actually have healthcare because of camp. Now if I get sick, I can go to the doctor. I was able to get my glasses. I finally have like dental care and I hadn't had that in like 2 years.
The Latino student population that we work for is predominantly first generation. The case with this is that once they come here, they've come to an island where they really have very little resource back home that they can rely on. So our objective is to be that resource for them. And all my staff, the majority of our staff, and particularly those that are working with camp, they're former camp students themselves. They were first generation when they came to Michigan State.
They are all like Latinos that have made it and they're like, we know it's hard, we know it's gonna be rough because of your family, but we made it and it's gonna get better. And also, whenever you're like feeling down, you can always go to Luis and he gives you an inspiring quote or he like gives you a 30-minute conversation about why it's important to succeed being Latino and being a minority in the United States.
What this program did for me and how it helped me is it definitely made me believe that I belonged here and that I had the ability to be able to be successful while I was here. And so that support system was critical. I think that the knowledge base of having somebody that I could relate with, that could help me in my language to be able to help me understand that this was a place that I could figure out and that I could learn to navigate and do well. And I think that, honestly, it was just somebody believed in me.
I think the accomplishments that we're seeing is that an increase in graduation, slowly but surely. I think we're starting to see a foundation where students can say, there's a Latino presence at Michigan State University. And once you build a foundation, it tends to attract, and just saying, there's a community.
High school teachers and counselors can ensure that students are ready for career and college experiences by really digging into the characteristics that will help support them. So being able to access technology, having good communication skills, being able to reflect, being able to problem solve, building all of those pieces into the instruction, as well as looking at what are the other opportunities for engagement.
Some of the needs of our community is having them take advantage of what is out there, because sometimes our community is very prideful and just saying, well, I can do this on my own. Yeah, you probably can, but you're probably going to slip and fall quite a few times. it would probably be a little bit easier if somebody helped you move forward.
The improvements that we've seen from the Commission and doing research is that we have Latinos that are joining community colleges. That seems to be a great pathway. What started happening is that they would come in for a certificate, and then we'd encourage them to continue on to the university and then go on to graduate school. So it is like a stepping stone.
The goal is to really celebrate our students, lift them up, empower them, learn from them, because when they bring those funds of knowledge forward, they'll teach you something, and that's really the joy of being in education, is recognizing I have something to give, but I also have something to receive.
They come to school with a desire to learn. They're smart, they're good problem solvers. Some of our students who are highly mobile, and the flexibility that they have in learning and adapting to new situations and new contexts. These are things that will propel them for the rest of their lives if they can be harnessed.
We need to work together regardless of the color that we are or the creed that we stand for, or we're in times that we need to pull together. And regardless if they look different than me, that we have the same goals in mind. It is to make sure that we continue to grow and continue to have opportunities for everybody.
Making It, Latino Students' Pathways to College, is a co-production of Regional Educational Laboratory Midwest and Detroit Public Television, with funding provided by REL Midwest through funds provided by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences.